Yeah,
Phil
Phil
was in
yeah.
for a really short time.
Oh.
He, you know, his professional duties kind of kept him busy, so he was around, but he really wasn't a really active member.
Kind of like a consultant.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to get back to the question of the history. I'm wondering if, I'm sure some people must be wondering, because I've been wondering for years, why it's called the Left Bank Jazz Society. So I'll say what I've heard, and John can fill in and see if this is not quite correct. But when they started getting together to discuss what to do sort of as a in the wake of the Interracial Jazz Society, they were meeting at a place called either the Left Bank Parisian Room or the Parisian Left Bank Room. And the co-manager was somebody named Lionel Wilson, and he had started that place.
Lionel was
the atmosphere of the Paris Jazz Club. So that's kind of how they got the name. He was trying to make this meeting place.
Yeah, Lionel
like
was
Paris
actually
club.
in the military in France, and he helped to manage a club in France called the Left Bank Parisian Room. And that's where the name came from.
So there's a club in France with that name too?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay. But he also used the name in Baltimore.
But he, the guy, you got the name right. The guy's name was Lionel Wilson.
So there was never a place called that. No, there was also a venue called Left Bank Persian Room in Baltimore, right?
Not that I know of.
No, I don't know that.
Oh, so that part is inaccurate. Okay, so where was everyone first meeting in '64 when they decided to form the society?
Well, that was the Al Ho Club.
That was the old Al Ho Club. It was
Frederick Avenue.
It was a neighborhood bar at Franklintown Road and Frederick Avenue. I think there's a school there now. But we had an apartment on the second floor that became our clubhouse for a very long time.
So that was never called the Parisian Room. So there's all these misinformation that's out on the internet that need to be corrected. That's kind of the whole point of historical research, because otherwise
that was a little neighborhood bar. And when we started out, we used to do, they had a large back room in the back of the bar that probably held 150 people. And I guess our first 15, 20 shows were held in the room in the back. We did local groups like Arnold Sterling, Mickey Fields, Art Bethel, Jimmy Wells, people like that.
Okay.
And then you moved to the Madison Club.
Then we moved to the Madison Club.
Avenue, Madison Street and Chester Street.
What was the capacity on the Madison Club?
It was probably around 300.
Nice size room, actually.
Nice size room, but the place caught on fire at least twice while we were there, and we decided it was time to move. That's how we found the ballroom.
That's a good sign. I have another question for you guys. You know anything about Benny Curse? Name sound familiar?
Benny was another really great guy. Was a detail person by nature. Benny walked around the entire concert with clipboards, noting musicians, the songs they played, how long the sets went. And he was, I think he was a shipping clerk of some type, but very studious, very knowledgeable about jazz. Him and Vernon were probably two of the most knowledgeable jazz fans that I've known.
And do you know what happened to all the notes he was taking? Those are lost forever, I assume?
Yeah, because somebody bought his house and they found out that Benny was kind of a hoarder. Charlie Simmons at Sojourner Douglas got a large portion of the stuff that he had, but basically it was old flyers, financial reports, minutes from meetings, that kind of stuff.
Right, because I saw the collection that the lady bought. There was no notes of stuff. Could that have gone in the Sojourner Douglas collection, or it's just lost forever?
Just lost forever, because a lot of it, I think Charlie went in and they picked up probably the flyers and the plaque cards and things that they wanted. Everything else probably went to the dumpster, because he just had, understand, stacks and stacks and stacks of papers and magazines and that kind of stuff. So it didn't have any value to the people who were cleaning out the house.
What happened to the stuff that was a Sojourner Douglas? Didn't that college close, or did I
So
misunderstand?
the college was closed by the federal government, so he's not even allowed to go in. And last time I talked to him, he was not allowed even to go in and clean out the stuff in his office. So there's no telling what's going to happen to that stuff. He
So that collection is still
also,
sitting in a college that no one can get into.
well, I mean, there's the federal government and foreclosure and bankruptcy and all of that kind of thing.
Huh.
He also got firsthand. We had a club member by the name of Floyd Williams who was a photographer, and when he passed away, Charlie went to his house immediately and got probably most of his negatives and prints. So Charlie's got a real collection of stuff. I understand he wanted to try to do a museum at the college, which never happened.
I'm sorry, who did you say had that collection of photos? I didn't hear.
A guy named Floyd Williams. Charlie.
Oh, Charlie Simmons.
his
Charlie
wife.
Simmons has the photos. Okay.
Yeah, and we tried to wait, a mourning period for the wife, but Charlie beat us to the collection.
Oh, no.
Okay, I have a question. I was told that the Left Bank used to sponsor jazz cruises. You remember those?
Oh yeah, we started out doing a midnight cruise, from like 8 to 12, and that became really successful. And then we started doing an all-day cruise, and we would have two bands. We would have one at, and we got to Annapolis, the bands would switch, so you'd hear one band going down and one band coming back. And you could bring your own food. You couldn't bring any alcohol, but everybody knows how to get alcohol in a place where
I think they
you're not
sold it.
supposed to take it. Yeah, they sold it.
Yeah, they sold it.
But we would get to Annapolis and pick up 45 bushels of steamed crabs,
Right.
and sail back to Baltimore. It was an instant sellout from the very beginning. It sold out every year. I have friends who are still mad that we don't do the all-day boat ride.
Yeah, I'm
It
wondering.
was a very expensive venue to do.
I went on the boat ride during Labor Day weekend, and the group that played was the George Benson Quartet.
Yeah.
And Benson was really getting popular at the time. And Lonnie Smith was playing organ, and a Baltimore guy by the name of Dave Hubbard, who went to New York, was playing saxophone. And it was a great show. They had steamed crabs. It was a major party.
Yeah,
Is what it was.
We started out during the midnight cruise. We would book national acts. I remember we did Groove Holmes, we did Lee Morgan, but on the all-day cruise, we would use local groups, and normally would be Dave Ross's group, Carlos Johnson, groups Danny Brown and his group, and like Michael said, it was an all-day party. I mean, a day on the bay, free beer, live music, your own food, and then crabs and
Right.
beer on the way back to Baltimore. The problem was when we got back to Baltimore was getting people off of the boat.
That's exactly right.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody wanted to end the party.
Nobody wanted to end the party.
Yeah,
Folks
right,
wanted to sit there half the night,
Okay, I got another question from the audience. It has to do with Floyd and Laverne. You know them? Were they original members or were they just patrons?
Floyd is the guy I was just talking about.
Okay.
Floyd Williams was a photographer. Laverne was his girlfriend. She was never a member. Floyd was a member.
Okay.
Floyd was, by the way, was a great photographer.
Well, it's funny you mentioned.
You're saying those photos still exist, but Charlie Simmons has them.
You got it.
Okay, I got another question from the audience, which was, who created the now world-renowned Left Bank Jazz logo? There's always been a question about who it's supposed to be.
Well, it's funny that until the day he died, Jimmy Heath swore
That was him.
that was him and that we owed him money for copyright. But I don't really remember who actually did the first logo. They kind of had it going by the time I joined the organization. But yeah, Jimmy Heath swore that that was him.
Yeah, I've seen the side-by-side photos. It's like, I don't know.
That's a mighty young Jimmy Heath.
I hear you.
It's a mighty tall Jimmy.
Mighty tall Jimmy Heath. Because remember, Jimmy was a little teeny guy.
Okay, I have another question. You also used to have a program when you worked with the I guess it was Baltimore City Jail.
Yeah, there was actually, well, you know, there was a branch of Left Bank in D.C.
Okay.
And there were two branches here in Baltimore. One was at the Maryland Penitentiary. That was Left Bank 954, which is actually the address of the jail. The jail is 954 Forest Avenue.
Right.
And the other one was in the Jessup House of Correction. And periodically we were allowed to take bands in for the inmates to listen to, and they were very organized. I mean, they had yearbooks and officers and the whole bit.
Yeah, I was told that sometimes some of the guards or even the members, they actually played in the band.
Say that again?
I was told that some of the guards actually played music during some of the concerts, and even had a couple of the people that were.
Well, to be honest with you, I never went into the jail.
Okay.
I refused to go. But, I know they brought a lot of local groups. I remember one group called the She Devils, but they would take groups in maybe 3 or 4 times a year.
Oh, the She
I never went.
The female funk group from
Say
Baltimore.
again?
The female funk group, the She Devils.
Yeah.
And that was another name. Ruby Glover. I was told that she used to do some of those shows.
Sweet lady. Grandmother of bebop in Baltimore was not an issue. Very sweet lady.
You talking about Ruby?
Yeah.
Yeah. You remember Ruby, Michael?
Yes, very well.
As a matter of fact, and it's not connected to jazz, but her granddaughter lives next door to me.
Well, that's kind of connected.
Yeah, Ruby was a very well-known vocalist around Baltimore.
And she also taught a jazz history class at Sojourner Douglas. Benny Kirsch taught it originally, and when he passed away, Ruby Glover took over his class.
Yeah, I saw her a couple of times with when I used to run around the city with Bobby Ward, and he played for her quite a few times.
And you know, it was interesting that Ruby Glover actually died on stage.
Oh, didn't know that. When
Yeah,
did that
she was
happen?
performing when she had a heart attack or whatever killed her, and she died right on
I didn't know
stage.
that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is probably the way she would have preferred to go.
Yeah, a lot of musicians that happened to them.
Do you remember? I got another question from the audience. Do you remember the first show and the last show of Left Bank?
Wow.
It would have been over at the Union Hall.
The first show was probably at the Owl Hole, and I think it was Jimmy Wells, the vibraphonist.
Okay.
And the last show, well, we had a show about 2 years ago, and the guy's name is, he played saxophone with Pieces of a Dream, and I can't remember his name. But before that, the last show was at Coppin, and that was Sun Ra and his orchestra.
Right. I booked that show.
All right.
Well, was that
When you say
was that
last show, in
after,
what year are you talking?
The Union Hall?
What? Sun Ra?
The Sun Ra show?
Yeah,
Because
that was
the
at
Union,
Coppin.
yeah, but the Union Hall was, I thought they were the last shows.
The last show
Urban
we did
Avenue.
before we took that 15-year break was the Sun Ra show.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
In what year are you talking that the last show was?
Say again?
What year was that, the Sun Ra show?
It was in the 90s.
Wait a minute. I have it on my sheet. tell you in about 10 seconds.
All righty. Okay, again, if you have any questions, please type them into the chat, either to me or to everyone.
No, I'm sorry. Let me correct myself. The first show was Donald Bailey and Jimmy Wells. That was August the 16th, 1974. And the last
64
show
probably.
was 2002. That was Sun Ra
Right.
and Coppin.
So what was the concert that you, John, you had announced on Facebook 4 years ago with Eddie Bacchus?
Yeah, that's the name I couldn't remember.
Right.
That's the name I couldn't remember.
That was on Liberty Heights Avenue.
Yeah, yeah. That was about
That was like 4 years ago, but that was that officially a Left Bank show?
Kind of, yeah. We kind of did it because we decided to see if there was still love out there for the society. It really wasn't the kind of straight ahead shows that I would prefer that we do, but it was an inexpensive show, it was an inexpensive venue, and we figured, well, we try it. And we did, capacity, so.
So would you do something like that again with maybe a more straight ahead group?
Oh, it would definitely have to be more straight ahead than that group.
Okay.
Matter of fact, my dream concert, if we ever came back, would have been Roy Hargrove's, but of course he's not around anymore.
Well,
But that was the group that I had envisioned us coming back with.
I booked Roy a couple times at the Union Hall.
Yeah, yeah.
And
another dream that I had would have been to have done a Baltimore group, like Cyrus on piano, the drummer.
Dennis Chambers?
No, from Baltimore. Harper, Renard Harper.
Harper, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe Tim Green, Antonio Hart. Antonio Hart. Who's the guy that's in California now, the trumpet player?
Dante Winslow.
No, he
Dante
played,
Winslow.
Winslow.
Oh, Dante.
That was one of my ideas was to hook all of these Maryland guys up together and present a concert.
You could still connect with Peabody. He has a lot of Baltimore people who are now on their faculty. Tim Green, you mentioned. Warren
Tim
Wolf.
Green's there, yeah.
Yeah, Tim
And Warren
Green,
Wolf,
Sean,
Chris Fun,
Jones.
Sean
Chris
Jones.
Fun. Yeah.
Yeah, you could. I mean, that's a way to do something.
That's the new hot group.
Well, they're playing quite a bit now in town. It's not like
They're all, especially Warren. He's really, really busy. But it's a possibility. As a matter of fact, Tim Green is kind of a family member. His brother married my niece, so he's accessible. But and Cyrus, the problem would be is kind of corralling him because he's very busy too.
well, he also moves a lot. He was living in Jarrettsville for a while, and then I think he's moved out. I think he's up near New York now. I'm not sure. He's playing this weekend, actually.
Exactly. I think he's playing
The Keystone Corner.
Right. Okay, another question from the audience was Clifford Jordan the only artist that ever held their wedding at Left Bank?
Yeah. And that was so funny because after the second set, and we had the best patrons in the world who helped us to move all the tables and chairs to make an aisleway. The women took these white bows and put them on the ends of each row. And Clifford and his wife went in the back and he changed into a all-white tuxedo. She had her white gown with the bridesmaids and ushers, had the wedding on the stage. They went back in the dressing room, they pulled the tables back together and had the third set of the concert.
Oh, this is between shows. Between sets.
Yeah, between sets. Matter of fact, I have photographs in the yearbook.
Yeah, there's a photo in one of the yearbooks.
Yeah.
Have you considered donating a couple of yearbooks to a library, like Enoch Pratt or something like that, so they could be like a central location for people to study the history of Left Bank?
Say that one more time.
Have you considered like depositing some copies of yearbooks and possibly other memorabilia at Enoch Pratt Library or something like that to have like a centralized history of Left Bank?
No, I mean, there's only one complete set of yearbooks, and I have those, so I don't know what I'd really want to. I mean, I didn't, over the 50 years, you can imagine how much paper and stuff would be accumulated. So I basically kept the yearbooks, some flyers, some 8x10 glossies, but I don't really think there's enough stuff to even have a depository, to be honest with you. I don't know what Ruth Binsky might have, but there's not a whole lot of that stuff that's around because, we're talking almost 50 years ago.
Right. Well, there was a big collection from the Benny Curse house, but now it's being sold at auction through Second Story Books. So that would have been an opportunity, but that didn't work out.
I mean, I could be wrong. I don't envision people being interested in 40-year-old financial reports and 40-year-old notes from a meeting. I just don't think that's going to be that important.
You'd be surprised.
You're wrong.
Yeah, I have to agree with Tyrone on that. I can tell you there are people out there.
On the internet, it would just turn your head around. That's all I can say.
There would be interest in that kind of material, I guarantee you.
Well, it would have to do with, I guess, fees paid by the artist or by the club for the artist. I mean, that's interesting. I mean, from a historical standpoint, I guess. I don't know.
Well, isn't the history kind of
anecdotally it's not, but
isn't the history kind of important too? I mean, another thing that John mentioned was that apparently Benny Curse wrote down all the set lists. That would have been very helpful for discographies. It's kind of a shame to lose that kind of information. And I saw that someone just posted the question about the Sonny Stitt Lucky Thompson last concert. So this is of 1974, and although Lucky Thompson lived many years after that, he quit in disgust with the music business, and this was, as far as we can tell, his last known performance. That's kind of historical too in its way. So, more information on that, even if it were something like financial records, would be extremely helpful to researchers, because there's a whole other area of research that I haven't heard much, honestly, being tapped into about Left Bank. And as you saw, a simple thing like you go on the internet and you think that people met in a room that was called the Persian Jazz Room, when in fact there was no such room, and that was a place in Paris. So all this kind of misinformation just keeps getting propagated, especially with the internet, and I think it would be time to kind of get this down on paper. So, some of these documents may be of no use, I agree, but I think it's various researchers can kind of establish that, and I think, shouldn't necessarily assume that it's not of interest to other people, because different people have different angles to what they're looking for. So, I mean, the history of Left Bank has really not been written yet in a really detailed way, as far as I can see. Everything I found is I go back and I find out this was not quite correct and that was not quite correct, and we're left with a lot of incorrect information, and it keeps getting propagated.
So that's what we got John here for.
That's how it is with oral history.
There he is. That's why I brought him.
Yeah, do you remember the concert with Sonny Stitt and Lucky Thompson?
Say that your audio is low. Say that again.
Yeah, do you remember the show with Lucky Thompson and Sonny Stitt?
Vaguely. I mean, you got to realize I attended probably 1,000 concerts, and after a while, they kind of tend to run together. I mean, I remember, some of the highlights: the Duke Ellington, the Cannonball, Crusaders, Whitney Branford, Marcellus, Betty Carter, but some of the other concerts are kind of cloudy. That particular show, I really don't remember off the top of my head.
But tell me about one of your ones that you do remember. The one when you first think about it comes to mind.
Oh, again, like I said, the fact that Duke Ellington's last birthday was at Left Bank. The first time we had the Jazz Crusaders. We booked Wynton Marsalis and Branford just after they left Blakey's band. Matter of fact, when we had Blakey, they told us they were about to start their own group. Another concert I remember, we had bassist Keita Betts, who was coming in with a group who wanted to bring in a young group to play during intermission. And we told him we didn't do kiddie groups, and we kind of talked us into it. And the group played during intermission. And that group happened to be Pieces of a Dream. You know, we did Betty Carter, Carmen McRae, Horace Silver. I never forget we had the flautist Jeremy Stein.
Jeremy Stein, right?
And Johnny Hartman walked into the room and got up on the stage and played.
He just passed away.
Yeah, him and Eddie Jefferson were my all-time favorite vocalists.
Really? I have a friend that feels the same way about Johnny Hartman.
Oh, yeah. The album with him and Coltrane is unbelievable.
Yeah, it's a great album.
It was featured in a movie, as a matter of fact.
If I ever wanted to impress a girl, I always played that album.
I remember seeing him, Johnny Hartman.
Esquire magazine said that Johnny Hartman and John Coltrane was the best album of the century.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
That's arguably true.
I hear you.
Well, you know, Zeb had just put out the recordings that Coltrane did just before he did that outing with Johnny Hartman. That music is out too now. And Left Bank has done 2 albums recently. We did one with Etta James and Cedar Walden. And we just released, Residents just released George Coleman concert.
I thought that was going to be on Reel to Reel.
On Reel to Reel? No, I didn't know that. I hadn't
That's
heard
like
that.
same label as the Etta Jones. That was my understanding.
When Etta Jones came out, he did LPs and CDs.
Oh, so the LP might have been Resonance?
Yeah.
Okay.
He sent me both. He sent me the CDs, and he sent me CDs for the club members, and he sent me vinyl for myself.
Okay. Well, maybe they're on separate, but definitely the Etta Jones CD, I have it right here, was on Reel to Reel, which is...
yeah, I mean, all of our stuff was reel to reel.
No, I mean, I'm sorry, that is confusing.
All the tapes the tapes that Vernon did were all reel to reel.
I'm sorry, it's a bit confusing. Reel to Reel is the name of a record label that's run by a partner of Feldman's named Corey Wills.
I'm talking about Sony reel to reel tape recorders.
Well, Vernon used to use a Roberts tape recorder.
No, what I was trying to say is the Etta Jones and I think the George Coleman are not on Resonance Records. They're on Reel to Reel, which is the name of another record.
Well, that's the label he's talking about.
Yeah,
it's partner with Resonance, but it's officially on Reel to Reel.
8 or 9 different record labels. As a matter of fact, he just signed an agreement with Blue Note to produce any of their tapes that he signed.
Is there any plans for that to come out soon? Do you know of anything?
Not that I know of. We have a Pharrell Saunders and a Sun Ra. And a Sonny Rollins that he's in the process of trying to market now.
Okay. I got another question from the audience. It has to do more with jazz style. Outside of Sun Ra, Sun Ra definitely was not your traditional jazz artist. What other artists can you think of that were more in that non-traditional jazz artist vein that you booked at Left Bank?
Oh, you're talking about...
I was involved with a lot of those shows.
Yeah, Rassan, Roland Kirk.
I brought Chico Freeman in. I also brought in Sam Rivers and Dave Holland.
Okay, what year was this?
I think Chick Corea's group Circle was there.
Yeah.
With Anthony Braxton, and Art Ensemble Chicago was there.
Here we go.
I've got photos of that.
Sam Rivers. I'm curious about Sam Rivers.
He actually ran a roller skate over the wires inside the piano.
What were you saying, Bertrand?
I'm sorry, who ran the roller skate?
Chico.
Chick
Oh,
Corea.
okay.
Chick Corea, I mean.
Chick Corea, really. I was asking about the Sam Rivers. Can you tell us a little bit more about those shows?
I wasn't there, but I know they played there. I was involved with booking some of the avant-garde shows.
Okay.
I know there was a
Dave
Sam
Holland.
Rivers played there as a sideman with Herbie Hancock, and he also did a concert with the band that did that New Conception record of standards, and I think there was one or two other things.
Yeah, you also
In the
played
70s.
with Dave Holland and Thurman Barker,
Okay.
and he had a tuba player.
Joe Daly, probably. Yeah.
Joe Daly, right.
What time period are you talking about, Michael? What time was this happening?
That would be in the late 70s.
Okay.
I started working as an agent in 77, and I was responsible for that show a few years later, along with Chico Freeman and some other shows. Jack DeJohnette new special edition that had Arthur Blythe, Chico Freeman, Peter Warren, and Jack. They had just signed a contract with ECM Records at the time.
Okay.
That was later on also.
Michael, this was all in the later 70s, though, right? Because I think, John,
That later 70s and into the 80s.
right. In the 60s, John, it was Leon Anker who was doing the booking. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay,
We did
that's what I
all of our
thought. So.
booking. The only time we used anybody other than Leon was Michael.
Okay, but that was later than the 60s. You didn't book anything in the 60s, right, Michael?
No.
You were
He
too
didn't
young.
become an agent until
In the
77.
70s, yeah, right.
Okay.
But I was coming to the shows in the early 70s.
Okay.
Yeah. I got a question about one of the most famous people that left Bank, and that was the Cake Lady.
Oh, yeah. Miss Gladys.
Gladys, right.
She was a wonder. And it was interesting. We would book a group, and the musicians, we also had a former policeman, Chef Willis, who prepared dinners in the back. And when they called down to tell Leon what time they would be here, they would put in the orders for the chef and, you know, tell Miss Gladys, I want a coconut cake, or I
Hummingbird
want a
cake.
chocolate cake, or hummingbird cake. She was very, very successful. The ballroom was like a carnival. We sold beer, and we sold food. We had ladies selling cakes. It was a good time.
I don't remember anything outside of that fried chicken. That was my favorite.
That was Chef Willis.
Well, Gladys had her little stand at the back also.
Yeah. It was funny because we would get these, you know, 5-page riders from the musicians. You know, they want Perrier water and they want fresh melons and this and that. And Leon said, man, I'll take you in the back and get you one of those greasy chicken sandwiches from Chef Willis.
John, you had mentioned earlier the show where I know you didn't get Miles, but you had Freddie Hubbard fill in. So it was, I think if I remember, this is the first official show in the ballroom. There was actually an earlier Dizzy show, but when you finally moved to the ballroom in late 66, so the band was pretty amazing. Herbie Hancock was apparently the nominal leader, and you had Wayne Shorter and Ron Carter, and so Freddie Hubbard in lieu of Miles, and it wasn't Tony Williams, it was Jack DeJohnette.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, Miles.
remember about that
we
concert.
never-
That must have
we
been
never able
quite.
to get Miles to come. Even though he had heard about the group, he, you know, he wouldn't come. It took us forever to get Cannonball to come.
Yeah, but do you remember anything about that concert with Herbie Hancock and Wayne Shorter? That must have been quite amazing.
Oh, it was a great, I mean, all I can remember is, I don't remember any details. Again, we're talking almost 50 years ago.
That's
But it was
you were
great.
thinking.
I mean, Freddie Hubbard was one of my all-time favorites. As a matter of fact, the last time that we booked Freddie, I was president, and we had heard rumors that he was having problems with his lip. But I talked the group into booking him, hopefully to get one more show out of Freddie. And he called me that Sunday morning from California to tell me that he couldn't make the gig, that his wife was going to the hospital. And we were at the Teamsters Hall by that time. We had to actually cancel the show.
Yeah, I
So Freddie was one of the
concert, but it got
all-time
canceled.
favorites.
That was going to be my
Absolutely.
first left bank concert and never happened. But it's kind of curious, like if you look at historical perspective, if you think of what the Miles Davis Quintet was playing at the time, once you take those guys with, you know, Jack instead of Tony, and you have Freddie playing, they're no longer playing the repertoire from those records. So I'm kind of curious. There's a good chance they probably played a lot of Maiden Voyage because Freddie did that record with Herbie.
Oh yeah, Freddie. You know, Herbie was for all intents and purposes the leader.
Right.
Well, I'm sure he did the set chart. You know.
Right. So there's a good chance that they veer towards that kind of music. I'm guessing they may have played
as opposed to
originals too.
You know, So What and Miles and stuff.
Yeah, they wouldn't have played that, I don't think.
No. And I think Freddie was kind of the co-leader. So I'm thinking between the tunes that Freddie likes to play and the tunes that Herbie Hancock likes to play was probably the bulk of the, concert.
Okay.
See, that band became VSOP later on.
Yeah.
With except it was Tony Williams.
Tony instead of Jack.
Right. So basically, yeah, that's that concert. If there hadn't been a change in the drum share, would have been the first incarnation of VSOP. That's correct.
Correct.
But I'm sure they probably played. My guess is they played a lot of Maiden Voyage and maybe.
Well, I saw VSOP at Merriweather. They were so popular at the time.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah, that was a heavy supergroup.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we're getting towards the end. One question, and I've heard this from a couple people, is what happens to the left bank moving forward?
Well, you got to realize, again, as I said, we did probably 700 shows at the ballroom, another 300 shows in other places. The audience got older, the members got older, the musicians got older. For some unknown reason, we were never really able to attract the younger audience unless we brought in Pieces of a Dream, Les McCann, somebody of that nature. And, folks stopped coming out. Members were I was the youngest member of the original group, and I'm now 77. So members just got older. A few of them passed away. A few of them had health issues.
You couldn't find a real good place.
Couldn't find a real good place to do BYOB, which is our niche. So we just kind of ran out of steam.
Okay, is there any plan to have, was any succession plan? For example, you're going to pass this mantle of president on to this person or vice president, or we're going to run the organization from this location? Has that been discussed?
Not really. I mean, there were about 4 other members other than myself. And again, everybody, they really haven't shown a real interest in getting really active again. I mean, it could be something we could do, once a year concert, that kind of thing. But I don't really foresee us doing anything more than maybe once a year.
Okay, I'm going to think of jazz from what I've heard.
It's a very exhausting way to work. I mean, you got a lot of little pieces to pull a concert together.
Yeah.
As Tyrone was saying, assuming the mantle, is there any reason there couldn't be new members who take over that hard part of the work?
That's a possibility. It's always a possibility.
Is the name trademarked or is it registered as a nonprofit? I mean, what would be the legalities of other people taking over the trade?
I don't know how the organization would feel about somebody taking over the reins. That would really have to be really thought of, legalized and the whole bit.
I'm saying people becoming members, but just not necessarily assuming the older members are still around.
Well, I mean, we've been off the scene for over 15 years,
Right.
and nobody's expressed any real interest in doing what you're talking about. As a matter of fact, when we did the last show, I mean, we did the capacity of the room, but there was no overwhelming rush to come to a left bank concert. So I don't even know whether that kind of real interest is still out there, to be honest with you.
I think an organization like the Jazz Alliance could try to find out if there's an interest, and that's something to take into the future and find out, you know, in the city of Baltimore, who would be.
That's a good point, Bert. That's something we could definitely look into. Before we wrap up, excuse me, Michael, I had one question. I got a question directed directly for you, which is, was becoming an agent an outgrowth of your involvement with the Left Bank?
Yes.
Okay.
I was into the music very heavily, but by going to the Left Bank, I realized that that was what I wanted to do. I was very enthusiastic about it. I started knowing the players, and a lot of the players needed representation because they were doing a lot of stuff on their own. So they said, well, why don't you help me out? And that's how I started, and I just grew into more, and then I started my business in '77.
Okay, all right. I want to thank all my presenters here, and I want to thank everyone for showing up. I'm sorry we have to do a hard stop, but we have a Justin Taylor concert coming up soon, and so you can leave from this and jump into the room. Again, hopefully we're going to have some notes from this. Stay in touch with the Baltimore Jazz Alliance. If you're not a member, become a member, and we're going to be putting some information about some of the things discussed here in our next newsletter and on our website. Again, thank you very much. And at this point, I have to, as they say in the bars, you don't have to go home, but you got to leave here.
No.
All right, take care and thanks again.